Carlos Hyde, and you are at the center, like Nick Saban, of the college football universe. And I wouldn't talk about it for 2 days because I had called a source, and he said, I don't believe the story. And it was somebody I've trusted through the years. It turns out the story wasn't the story, yet you just suspended him for 3 days, Carlos Hyde, the running back. So why, if there's no charges, why did you suspend him?
Well, I was like you when I first heard the news, immediate dismissal. It's over.
Yeah, that's the story. You dismissed him.
When there's a charge, you're done. You're finished. Any domestic issue like that. And the players know that. The most disappointing thing to me is I watched the video.
You saw the tape in the bar or whatever it was?
I didn't go to the bar. Someone brought it to me, and I watched it like America's watched it.
Okay.
And I actually called the police myself and they said, well, if it's a normal non-athlete, there's no charges. There's no, even if someone wanted to press charges, there's no charges. But the most disappointing thing when I saw the video is walk away, and they're taught to walk away. Any domestic, anything like that.
So he didn't walk away?
Did not walk away. And that's the punishment.
Let me ask you this, because I had a coach who admires you 2 years ago. This is somebody that admires you, and he's considered a top 20 coach. And he said, listen, Urban's as sharp as they get. He said, when Urban went to Florida his first couple of years, he said, I think Urban's a different coach now. He said, I thought he was a little lenient early years at Florida. Is that a fair criticism? Are you different today than you were? That was your first big gig.
It's amazing when the question of discipline comes up, and I did change at Florida a little bit. When I saw what was happening, what was left for the guy from a broken home or from a tough situation to throw him back in the street, we went into rehab mode where we wanted to fix all the issues. And if a kid had a hard time, or if I knew that in my heart, whether through it's prayer, whether it's through just conversation with people I trust, that if I remove this kid, which we did one time, we removed a kid, he went on to another school and ended up committing suicide. And that weighed heavy on our entire – I have a great coaching staff down there. We had arguably one of the greatest coaching staffs of all time. And we went on a mission to try to, help as opposed to – and we did. We helped a lot. We also failed a few times. And so I'm much more guarded now than I've ever been about second chances. The recent events will sit with me the rest of my life about, I realize it's been removed and, it's been 4 years since I coached a player. But to realize that person was in our camp, what more could we have done? So, but I'm much more guarded now than I've ever been.
But what does your wife say? I know your wife. What does she say? Does she ever come home and say you're being too lenient, you're being too tough?
Well, she's in the profession. She's a psychiatric nurse that deals with addiction, deals with behavioral issues, and I lean on her an incredible amount. She's helped me with a current player who has a brother with an issue that he's had some very emotional times. So I lean on her. She's very involved, and so I do lean on her. I ask her. And there's a small circle of people that I rely on in these tough situations, because that's tough. A normal person would not be punished for what had happened. Yet we have a standard that we go by, and we're going to, you lose 1/4 of your season. That's a tough penalty.
I said this ad nauseum last week. Or 2 weeks ago, I said, how come we want to criticize Urban for Aaron Hernandez, but he gets no credit with Chris Leak and Tebow, who are just remarkable human beings? If you're going to blame the coach for the guy that goes sideways, then give him all the praise for the love. And in my opinion, you shouldn't get a ton of credit for Tebow or blame for Hernandez. That ultimately, chaos and instability, if you're handed that after 18 years, there are limitations to you. Again, let's go back to early Urban Meyer and today's Urban Meyer. Are players tougher to deal with today because of social media, because of the AAU circuit, because they're superstars? USA Today puts Javar Clowney on the cover. Didn't do that 12 years ago. Is it harder to do what you do?
It's much more difficult. Social media, recruiting. When a young person, I've heard right now, there's 2015 recruits committing right now, and some are projected to go to the NFL. You're talking about a sophomore getting ready to go into his junior year. With that comes, the obvious. Entitlement might not be the right word, but just you get patted on the back so many times when you're 15, 16, 17 years old that by the time we get them, you are dealing with some issues. And I call it de-recruiting, and our staff has to deal with that. So it's a much different. There is complete transparency in everything. You see that the great quarterback that, every time I look up, I see him on TV, and I just want him to go enjoy his life and go play great football like he does. I feel so sorry for. I don't know him, but just see nonstop. And when I coach Tim Tebow, let him go play. Let him go do what he does. but that's not the world we're in. And same with coaching staffs. We all selected, players select to play, coaches select to coach, knowing that you are going to be held responsible for players' behavior, even if they leave.
Urban Meyer, Ohio State coach. I was reading a media critic yesterday. Somebody sent it to me on Twitter, and they blamed ESPN creating the mythology for Johnny Football. And if we didn't create the mythology, he'd be okay, which I disagree with. But how about this? Do you ever tell kids, turn off ESPN, stop watching that stuff? Are we a distraction?
I think social media has taken it to an nth degree. I think ESPN of old, where it was just ESPN, absolutely not. I think the whole social media where everybody's tracking everybody's movement. Can you imagine being 18 years old today? I'm glad I'm 49. I don't want to be 18
Do you allow
years
Twitter?
Old. Sure. Every rule you make, you have to have a punishment. So I have a full-time staff member that monitors everybody's Twitter.
Are you kidding me?
He's a full-time
Is that a punishment or a job?
I mean, it's a job that he does because, and we've had to call kids in and say, get it off your Twitter and don't use it anymore. So we allow it, but we do monitor it.
By the way, I'll just tell you full disclosure. It was the greatest coaching job I've ever seen last year because Cal, I thought, had more speed than you did last year, and you went undefeated. No, I don't even know how. I can't even explain it. So I see you're a preseason too, and I'm thinking to myself, I know your roster pretty good, and I didn't think offensively, I didn't think you had enough speed last year, and I know you recruit like nobody's business, but these are going to be young kids. I'm a little skeptical. Are you Alabama fast? Do you have? I didn't see the speed last year.
No,
are you overhyped?
We're not Alabama fast unless these four. We brought in 4 to 5 freshmen that run sub 4.4, 4.5.
Will they play all
and they're going to be
play?
Offense. They have to play. So we'll find out when camp starts. But I'm real excited to get her. I haven't seen him, but our strength coach and our other players have told me that they're pretty dynamic. So that's an element we're missing is speed on offense.
Okay.
Plus the returning guys are a little bit better than they were a year ago.
I love that you called out, and I said this to Buckeye fans who mostly hate me, and I said, listen, I love that you called out the Big Ten because I said what's happening now, if Urban loses one game, it's not easy to win at Camp Randall. People aren't going to put him in the national title game. They're going to say, look at that conference. How much flack did you get for criticizing the conference for recruiting? You were right on, but that doesn't mean people liked it.
Well, I was asked a question about what's the difference between the SEC and the Big Ten, and the difference is just the recruiting right now. You see 9 of the SEC in the top 15 in recruiting at times, and there's excellent coaches, excellent players in the Big Ten. There's just not enough, and I see it right now. I see people recruiting their tails off. I see more night games on the schedule now to help in recruiting.
Love that.
And I just think the Big Ten's got so much to offer. But the fact is we got to get better, and I see it happening. I see it. You can just read the newspapers and see all the recruiting that is going on.
I don't know if you've heard of Michigan. They got a football program. Brady's doing a pretty good job recruiting.
They're doing outstanding.
Really good.
They're really recruiting, and they're not the only ones in that conference.
Yeah. Good seeing you. You know, a lot of people, it's funny that, I see you sometimes on TV, and I'm like, the Urban I know, he's always friendly. You just come in here joking. You're showing me your Twitter, your wife, your texting. Boy, you're rough on those guys sometimes. You're so nice to me. Boy, you're rough on those Columbus media guys. Why don't you lighten up a little bit with them?
I'm trying to. I don't think I'm rough. I'm just really honest, and I realize that's a big part of our job, and that's an area I have to do better at.
All right. Do better at that if you could, Coach. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you.
All right. More next. 1-888-SAY-ESPN, The Herd on ESPN Radio.